Who did you say has that? Or you don't know who has it?
No, and I think but what he's suggesting is, I mean, this may not necessarily be research data, but it could be like a simple tool.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Simple calculator, you know, like these mortgage calculators, you know, high residue farming, and on one side, and then the other table is conventional farming, and then you put in input costs and commodity prices, and you play around with it, and you could do that, or you could come up with graphs that show net return based on change in one input cost. I think that's what you're referring to. Something like
So
that.
I have a question. Would it be worthwhile for an economist to build a spreadsheet that you put in this number and see how it affects the bottom line and change that number? Something that they can mess with on their own, with the spreadsheet, on their own computer.
Don't we have that on the NRCS website, the energy estimator,
Yeah, we do.
where you put in your current fuel price and fertilizer price, and, you know, so you essentially calculate the increase of 10%, and then you have your estimated commodity price. That's on the NRCS energy, and there's a tool that does what you're talking about.
What I did on my
You
guide,
have to go put the numbers in, but
what I did on my guide sheet, because I was dealing with strip tillage, you know, you got to buy the unit. So the question, the big question with the strip till unit is how many acres are you going to cover? Because it's really hard to pay for itself if you only have a few. And so I put, you know, well, if your farm is 500, 1,000, 2,000 acres, and then how many years it would take to pay off based on the amount of reduction in costs on an annual basis that you had because you decreased those tillage things, and then you went down through there and hopefully give them some clue where they might have ended up, assuming that yields were same.
and is that just for specific crops, or do you have?
Well, I mean, I listed the operations of the two individuals that had adopted strip tillage and what operations they had eliminated. So one was strip till corn, and then the other one was strip till, I think, beans, dry beans.
Can you send that to Andy and we would share it out? If you don't mind,
No,
you know,
it's
tweak
fine.
it to our operation.
It was, to me, you know, with strip tillage or you know, with a no-till drill, you've got to have the drill, and so the question is how many acres is it going to take to pay it off.
Yeah, and how long?
And so that's part of the equation, that economics that was going, you know, the questions the farmers had for me, so I kind of give the best estimation that I had.
Lars asked that question too.
But I think sometimes they're just simple agronomic questions like, can I get a stand? You know, or will there be salt problems? Will there be water infiltration problems? So maybe, I mean, there's that's where the experience of innovators could help.
Is that something that would be maybe helpful at this conference that you're talking about, or?
Well, there's probably some, I would imagine there's fears of adoption because things work now, and if you are going to change things, you want to make sure it works. And so, I mean, to me, the big thing as a grower is, can you get the seed out of the ground? How am I going to put the seed in the ground, and is it going to come up? Are you going to, so that's a start. And I think that's, like a lot of our tillage practices are to prepare a seed bed. Nice, fine seed bed with good soil seed contact, with no residue, so the soil is warm, you know. And so now you're saying you're changing all that.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
You know,
It's risky.
And the benefits of high residue farming or reduced tillage, they may be negative, but maybe in 5 years you'll see it. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm worried about this year, not 5 years.
So I don't know if you could send maybe Andy your guidelines, and that tool that you're talking about is already on the website. Is that on your homepage, or is that kind of
It's on the
It's on the
couple levels down?
And you go to energy on the national page, and there's this tool we can
So you might want to send that link, because sometimes if they're not on the home page, people don't take the time, they're hard to find.
But it's pretty handy. I mean, it gives you a rough idea, it's not perfect, but it's a good starting point. I've used it some.
So that was my question, was there data out there that, additional data, be it simple or practical or more involved, that you think that would be helpful? I mean, you all hopefully know the people in your area.
We've all talked about it. We don't have this little data.
We can, that's the problem, we can give them economic data, and we can give them agronomic data. One thing we can't do is say, what is the value of 0.1% increase in organic matter? Is that worth $1,000?
Yeah.
We know it's good.
And we know you have better water holding capacity because of it and everything, but the economic return we can't capture.
Yeah. So you end up using this tool and then using this tool, and it could start to be confusing when you've got too many faces to it.
Yeah.
And the farmer's going to be in the same boat. I mean, if I was a farmer, somebody said, well, you need to increase your organic matter, I'd look at him and say, oh, yeah, that's a good thing, but how much am I willing to, my paycheck am I willing to give up?
Yeah. How many inputs will I put in?
Well, I mean, he gets what's left over when everything's done.
Yeah.
How much of that am I willing to give up? Or do I have to give up any?
Yeah.
We've got a proposal in Washington State to do that, try to make an estimate of the value of the benefits that you get from snow equality, and then we're going to go back and figure out, okay, this is how you would get there, and we're going to do it through focus groups with growers. So we're not actually doing the research, we're actually looking at what they've done, and then we're going to kind of ground truth it with some measurements. But if we get funded, we'll have something like that. We have 2 economists working on it.
Cool.
Focus groups are really a good tool to use to get people talking to each other and to get feedback from people. It's safer than doing it one-on-one for them. It feels safer to them. And it's still not anonymous. It's easier sometimes. I think we've talked about some of those. Celebrate successes. How do you all celebrate successes?
Andy, we're having a party, right?
This is it.
This is it.
This is it. We blew it all right here. We didn't save any over for
For success, huh?
How do you celebrate success in your area? People things are going well.
One thing we try to do is use our public affairs guy and have them come do a spotlight on it, and it makes them feel good when they know that their story's going up on the state website or, something like that. Another thing you do is try and nominate them for awards, even if they don't get it. If you take the time to nominate them for one of these national or regional awards, it rewards them.
Jeff's done an award system in California.
I think it's good value, yeah.
So what's that system like?
Well, just recognizing pioneers.
And how do you do that?
Well, we have a formal process of nominating and screening and deciding and then presenting. And it's a little bit overdone, but we do it. There's a little drama.
There's a lot of press to it, yeah.
Huh?
It gets a lot of press.
Oh, we generate the press ourselves, come on.
Well, however it's done, it doesn't get out there.
What's the drama? You said it's...
No, I mean, every year I read a speech that introduces the people, and it goes on and on for
Oh.
15 minutes, and people get embarrassed by it. But and we even play fanfare music when the guy walks up and everything. So
Yeah, that's
It's
not.
fun.
Yeah, that stuff's fun. Yeah, we have something like that at there at MSU for people who go through our program and go to so many hours and attend so many sessions and do that kind of thing. We have a big year of the end of the year celebration. People really like that and appreciate that. So a change plan has to do with a communication plan, and I think you all talked and came up with some ideas for a communication plan, training plan, a resistance management plan. We haven't talked about that too much. And the coaching plan is about ongoing support. What about communication plans in your area? You talked about Jeff gets a lot of press. How do you drum all that up?
Well, certainly no model there, but we dog press releases. We, as I imagine some of you do, force ourselves to do that kind of a thing. It is a bit of self-promotion, I suppose, and we could be criticized for that. But if the word doesn't get out, I think, and it's surprising, within our university communication services group, there's not any kind of cohesive way of doing this, frankly. And it's scattered, it's disorganized, and everyone's overloaded with work, so if we don't do it ourselves, it doesn't get done. But it's a multifaceted thing, the email things that you probably get there. And actually,
Do you have a communications person?
not within our center or our group,
Oh, okay.
but and
So
I
is
don't know if that's useful or not. I
Yeah.
honestly don't know if it has any bearing on impact or anything.
Nina, the person that sends out your emails.
Oh, Diana, yeah.
Diana,
She's-
Nick, is what she.
We're somewhat organized in terms of mailing lists and that kind of stuff, and we're getting better, but it's not, I don't know if it works, if it matters, to be honest. I have no idea, yeah.
I see it in press release. I guess it's newspapers. I mean, I read the Capital Press. It always makes the Capital Press.
Yeah, but again, does that matter? That's the question, I don't know.
Capital Press is pretty big, I would say, in the West. Lots of growers read it.
I think it's probably the most popular magazine. What'd you say?
Yeah,
The broad
probably
spectrum.
It's the most popular weekly that growers in the West. I don't know what else would
all
compete
the
with it,
disciplines of agriculture.
but yeah.
What else do people do for communication plans locally?
Communication. Email.
Send out as much as possible.
On board, the email inbox.
Email, faxes, and
We try to make sure that the field offices have got all the fact sheets that are relevant to what we think is going on in their area. And we'll, at the state office, we'll put together those fact sheets, or sometimes they're a national fact sheet. But and all that is something that their producer on their way out, those kinds of things. But that's we're going to just, the back sheet might just be about cover crops, or some program, things like that. But I don't know if every state has the expectation of each DC to have their email web of growers that they send stuff out to all the time. But a lot of our best DCs have that. And so it's almost instantaneous. I send something, they say, oh, that's a wonderful thing, because they'll send it, and then it goes out to their grower.
One of the, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it seems like a lot of NRCS stuff gets put in FSA stuff, because that goes to every grower. We always would like to get a hold of their mailing list, but they won't share it.
No, what you just tell them, instruct them that they're going to put your stuff in their newsletter.
Well, yeah, I can do that too.
That's what we do. The Soil Water Conservation District sends something out to essentially every producer in the county. And NRCS writes the articles for it. Soil Water Conservation District may have like one article. The other front back of 2 pages is NRCS stuff.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The associations that are out there, I mean, when you think about how I do a lot of what I do, I'm blessed that I have a fortune state hay growers association, and they do a lot to help get the information out. And then they've got the Mid Columbia Hay Growers Association. So all those associations are my most important contacts with my growers is through the associations that they're a part of. In those associations, you know, how do I say it? That's the best way for me to get my information out. And I think also that's one way that this group, if we think about all the associations that would be affected by reduced tillage, if we could, you know, get a part of them or say, hey, you're invited, we're doing this and it's going to affect your commodity, it might be a way that we could gain some people on tour or whatever else we're trying to accomplish in a meeting or something. If we could at least let somebody in that association know that we're going to be addressing soil health issues and this is how you get involved.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say that I don't know if some of you know there's somebody like Maryland, Tasmania, Frank Van Clay. You ever heard of him? All right, he's in this whole arena of thinking and writing and everything. I remember one comment that is made in one of his articles that the best extension method is multiple extension methods, and that's probably what we're all talking about here. But I think, you know, we have to be probably more tactical about this too, because it sounds good like generating all this stuff, but what is the stuff that you finally mentioned that you think works best there?
Well, at least for my forage
I wonder if
information.
some of this isn't, you know, just fluff.
Some of it doesn't work. I tried direct advertising in newspapers for my workshops.
At all.
No.
I am never spending money
It
on
doesn't work
newspaper
for
ads again. Oh, and some of it was in ag news things. We have a monthly that goes out to every grower in the whole area, basically.
Basic business journal.
Didn't do me any good at all. So
And yet
some
you
things,
do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you have to be strategic about it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, because, yeah,
Well, the other side of it is, I mean, fundamentally, and I know this is going to throw a curve in here, if we think about it, what are the greatest examples of success in doing what we're all trying to do? Where have they occurred? And why have they occurred? I would propose, and this is maybe one of the Michael Kroll comments that nobody's going to agree with, but that dynamic leadership, almost in-your-face leadership, by certain personalities around the world have done more than all this extension education methodology in terms of creating change. And maybe that sounds like a hollow statement, but believe it or not, you know, the Ray Archuleta, who is an evangelist, without question, I would say, he's having an impact. He's doing good. Dwayne Beck, I can't think of anybody more inspirational and having a great career's worth of work. And what is that? That's dynamism. That's
charisma.
eyeball,
Yeah, charisma, yeah.
and he's doing it. And we don't. Leadership is something I think we haven't talked about emotion yet, but I'm curious where that's going to be. But you know, that's a lot. It's a powerful. I'm sorry for talking so much, but I think it's very important.
Yeah, we're going to make our way through this as we go along here. I think you've covered some of these things. This resistance management plan, we'll come back to that in terms of how much time do you want to spend on that. And then the coaching plan is about how do you make this be an ongoing. This is what have you learned about adults in the past that have been successful. And we've talked about a lot of things that have been successful. To get people to change, can people think of what other kinds of things have you done that have been successful? Have there been any that we haven't?
I mean, I've read about innovations that are easier to have adoption versus those that are not. I mean, they're easily, what is the word they use? You can replicate them easily on different farms or different areas. You can easily understand them. Residue farming, no-till, not either one of those really. What are the other? Have you guys read the Rogers book? The classic one in extension. But it talks about those different factors that, I can't remember the other ones, but those are two major ones.
Yeah, things that are easy to implement without too terribly much risk. It's called low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
Yeah, low-hanging fruit is what I usually talk about.
incremental change is
Right.
easier than systems change. We're talking systems change.
Yeah. What can you do that's pretty easy to do, that's not too risky,
Something that has visible results.
that you can see?
We may have that. I don't know. I mean, you know, Dwayne always turns the sprinkler on when, I don't know, he did when we were there. And then you walk out on the residue and then he says, you guys want to walk across that muddy road there? You say, no, thank you. There's a difference. You just put an inch of water on the ground, it's visible.
But he had that contrast there, so you can look.
Right. And that's one of the things that helps.
But it's not immediately visible, is our challenge with no-till.
No, this has been in no-till for
Yeah.
15 years.
Because I honestly think we're 5 to 7 years before you see visible benefits.
In a dry climate, that's a challenge.
One of the things that, I know Ray Archuleta, for example, does not agree with this, I'm not sure about Marlon, but one of the barriers we have is complexity of crop rotation. I understand that. And I think it plays to the point up on the screen there. There's nothing wrong with starting incrementally, if you like that word, and looking at the easier part of the rotation and changing it one piece in a complex rotation, and then looking at the next piece as opposed to, man, we got to change everything, because some of these crops are damn hard to change, and we all know that. So let's, speaking of low-hanging fruit, let's do the easy ones where it makes sense, see what it does to the whole operation, and then pick the next one. And to me, that is something that growers understand. You know, they're looking at, oh, I can't do this. You know, when I grow this isn't going to work. Okay, forget that. You know, we'll just keep that in mind for next year or 3 years down the road. What about right here?
I agree.
Start with the large seed sorts.
Yeah.
Forage crops.
Forage crops.
That's
Forage
why
crops are easy to.
Michael here, you know, he says he's eliminated all tillage. Well, yeah, he's growing all forage crops. He's not growing tomatoes. He's not growing cotton. He's not growing some of these more difficult crops.
It's
That's
really
also a
easy,
nightmare.
really easy to get somebody to plant alfalfa into green stuff. I mean, everybody's doing it.
Or do it the other way.
And you, well,
Yeah.
in Utah, you turn it around, I don't know if that can work.
Oh, really?
You know. But yeah, see, that's where we've got a teaching moment, a little increment that we can do.
Are we likely to contribute a greater amount by incrementalism or by long-term goal?
If we had, I would say that if you have a compelling reason for them to change, like Dwayne did, I mean, they were going from wheat fallow to continuous cropping, changed everything for the whole community. If you have that kind of a compelling reason, go for the what do they call it, transformative change. But otherwise, if you don't have a compelling reason, then you're kind of stuck with incremental.
No, but this gets into the long-term vision. Unless you're way out there, many, many years ahead, that maybe right now. So maybe it's part of our role to help focus on that future more than we're doing. I don't know. Myself, I'm not going to buy into incrementalism.
I would argue the other side.
Myself, I'm an incrementalist.
I'm not. Yeah.
Sorry.
But it's just overwhelming for a producer to try to attack all 4 crops in his rotation all at once.
4.
You know, if you took Marlon's intensity and through Mike and you packed it into a suitcase and you took it home and you opened it up in front of a bunch of growers and just let that passion and that, ooh, let's do it all right now thing, they'd sooner have a midget jump out and stab them. I mean, they wouldn't. I think
It would be
that
too much?
you have to, let's do this in baby steps. And when that step works, well, and we're there now with the no-till drill, we're there with the sprinkler conversion, we're there with our drip. I mean, right now, we're incremental, but they're chugging right along. There's a lot of little increments, but they're adding up.
Right.
So rather than trying to, take that, Marlon was a drink out of a fire hose to me yesterday with, with that passion and that energy, which is great. That's fine, but I think it'd be much better received if we took our little battles and won them, and then we use that momentum.
I think there might be two styles. One thing I told Marlon, I've known him for many years, and he said, how can I get this? I'm having a hard time teaching. And I said, all that energy that you've got, go ahead and let it out, because that's your style. Okay, so you exploit his strengths, but as a district conservationist, afterwards, you're meeting after the meeting, you say, hey, why don't you try planting grain into that alfalfa stuff? There's your increment. They've heard the big thing. They've got the hook, not in their brain. If you're thinking about it, then you can hang that increment.
Yeah, but I would suggest that each of the innovators that we've shared with the last 2 days, they have not been incrementalists. They've been bold, visionary people who have made huge system changes.
Did we really learn how they did it?
Huh?
Did we really learn how they did it, or whether they adopted one thing?
And they told us in 20 minutes what they'd spent how many years
I don't think
developing.
Ron made all those changes in 1 year.
Yeah, but he didn't do it in a piecemeal way. He had a vision for where he wanted to get, and he made those changes in a very tenacious, aggressive way. And he stuck with it.
I think it's good to give them a vision. I don't disagree with that at all, but I still think, even if I could get a vision to a farmer, I would say start here and work one system at a time.
Yeah, I don't.
In our irrigated vegetable growing areas, you run smack into potatoes, you run smack into onions, you run smack into carrots. There's multiple barriers that nobody has an answer for that I know of. Dwayne Beck does not have an answer for. Gabe Brown's potato thing is not going to work on a large scale. I mean, he could say all he wants on YouTube, but it's not going to work. So that's where I think, who's got that vision? That you could actually even do that
Well,
with.
the potato and elephant, we know where we want to go, but I'm not going to kick it down in the body.
No, but there are examples. I mean, you showed a sterling example last night of a very hard situation. It was surmounted. All right. The onion situation. There are no 200 onions in the world. They exist in Brazil. All right. I don't know about potatoes, but each one of these things is surmountable as well.
I don't.
We're going around.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that everybody needs. Yeah, it is a good discussion, because I don't know that everybody would necessarily need to do this the same way.
That's the difficulty in the whole thing.
Well,
Every farm's different. Well, that's the challenge in teaching adults. They're all different.
right, they're all different,
The teaching style is different.
Every learning.
you have to be yourself. So whoever said that, you have to be yourself, because if you're not, then that comes through as not being authentic. Yeah, you have to be yourself, and you have to. People have different opinions, and that's all fine. Scaffolding is, everybody knows what scaffolding is, but scaffolding is a technique that's used with adults to build on the experiences that they already have. And that's,
Incrementalism?
well, either way, I don't know. But that's what you all have done here, and that's really important. That's really important when it has to come to do with change, because that makes them feel more comfortable, more confident, that things may work a certain way or they may not work a certain way. And so why do we talk about motivation? We're kind of moving towards that area. So somebody talked about, I've had this presentation, I heard you all talking. Somebody over the last couple of days said things need to be purposeful. So if we see motivation as purposeful, it helps us to create knowledge base about effective ways to help adults learn. Make choices, give directions to their learning, sustain learning, and complete learning. And that can really result in changes in behavior. There's no motivation to change, to learn or change, and there's no learning or change. And that comes back to you need to get their attention. So if people are motivated, they're more likely to take notes. listen, stay in the room. Adults talk with their feet. Just like, when you're talking about advertising and you have 3 people come, but it was a good 3. Rehearse material and ask for help when they're motivated. Other factors such as ability and quality of instruction. Somebody was talking about on their website, I'm trying to think who that was now, talked about on their website they had things on there for different levels of ability. Do you all remember that somewhere in there? Might have been the people from Oregon that talked about they tried to put things on there, and I didn't get that one written down for their ability. People have different areas of ability. Adult learning is about intrinsic motivation, and that's what you were talking about, Marlon. His intrinsic motivation, it comes to the surface. Makes sense to him. It's important to their values and perspectives, and their motivation emerges. And here's your comment about differences in culture. It's really important to know the people in your area and what they're like, what their personalities are like, what their culture says. I mean, there are cultures who says that to learn something new is not cool. You see that a lot in the South. I'd say that. You see that a lot in the South where I came from in Virginia. There are cultures back there learning anything is not cool.
It's funny, when I had my job at the University of Missouri, they told me point blank at the beginning of the training, it said people north of I-70, it's I-71 goes to Kansas and Missouri. Kansas City. So people north are different than the ones in south. The ones in north, it's Missouri. The ones south, it's Missouri. But that's just the beginning. You'll learn the rest. and it was true. It was amazing that on the interstate could have that. I don't know if the interstate's a cause, but it was just the cultures even within the state.
Yeah, even within a county, it's really important to try and know what the difference is. Because if you
Kind of.
I mean, if you can set up this environment to generate intrinsic motivation, it just kind of rises to the surface. So this intrinsic motivation is governed to a large extent by emotion. And that's something that I think we don't always think about very often. It's a lot of what's going on inside of people. It's not easily visible. You can't necessarily see it. Now, Marlon, you can see it.
He's not lying about crying.
Hey, what?
He's not lying about crying. He's pretty emotional about it.
Yeah. Some people it's very visible. A lot of people it's not. So to get to this emotion, you really get to this seek first to understand what's really going on. And the best and the most lasting learning is motivated by emotion, and it's solidified by practice. Now, in your situation, I don't know that necessarily that the practice would necessarily have to be to do it. I mean, they might, and I'm just thinking, and you all have to see if you think this would work for people in your area. But practice might be sitting in a group and talking about, here's what it would be like for me if I did this. Here would be the advantages. Here would be the disadvantages. Here's maybe who I could talk to about it. That might be the practice to begin generating this intrinsic motivation. If we can lower anxiety and increase motivation, then you'll have learning. I mean, people don't learn very well when they're anxious or when they're fearful. And that was one of the barriers that you all listed, I believe, was fear.
Well, I think there's risk too, and I think that's something that we really got to address is if you try the risk of a change, and I don't know how we address that, but you just try to help overcome that. You want to reduce the risk of system change, but at the same time, system change is risky.
That's why we pay in dollars. It reduces the risk.
Well, yeah,
It does.
sure does.
It hooks them. Keeps them in these tracks for you.
Sure.
And I guess maybe that's one thing I'll just add too. Me, having a $50 per acre ability to pay strip tillers $50 an acre for 2 years to get some started. Even though they may not have all, at least got it out there and got it exposed and got people going, thinking about it, was a big plus. And it helped pay for some of their equipment through that grant that I got. And the fact that the no-till drill the first year was free. I mean, we said it costs like $19 an acre now, but we had to because it was part of a federal grant. We couldn't charge the first year. And so the first year, the excitement was through the roof. You drill it out here, you got to use it for reduced tillage. And that excitement, I thought one of the best things that we did was it was free the first year. Because it got it out there. And then when it had that kind of exposure, it just built on it.
Other ideas for how you can lower anxiety?
I think it will happen by itself. You've got your innovators and everybody else says, well, that's too risky for them. And then, the second tier of people, early adopters, they start using it, and that, just seeing it on a few more acres lowers the anxiety of other people. I think that's what actually sells the thing to go on through to the rest of the population.
Just listening to you all talk, I mean, it sounds to me that the more that you can showcase your innovators and the people that are doing it, if you can make that prominent and make more people know about it, that's a way to lower that anxiety. I don't have the strategies for how all you would do that.
Well, I think even having those rental drills that everybody's working on, that they can go out without having to pay the big expense. They tried it, it worked. Now I'm willing to go buy them because it worked. It got over that anxiety. Will it come up? Will we get a stand? And I think if you can find some way to get that first experience out there, then that helps overcome some of that anxiety.
Just listening again, talking about New Mexico, when you said after that session was over and the people stayed afterwards and talked about how they could get equipment. I mean, is it possible to create groups, ongoing groups of innovators who stay intact and who meet periodically to continue to share experiences? And I say this because a lot of the work that I do, sometimes I create these new things at the university. In fact, particularly when I'm wanting the faculty to learn something new. I mean, they're busy, it takes too much time, they don't want to change. And so I've tried to do some things like get what we call them faculty learning communities. And it sounded like kind of your communities of practice that you were talking about, that people had to get together for 5 years, but people don't want to commit for that long. But that's too long. So I was wondering if there was a possibility that you could get some intact groups, like, okay, these fellows were sitting there after the meeting. Do you all want to come back and meet again next week? Let's talk about the progress and how things are going. Is that?
That's how South America does. Argentina has done that with their farmer groups. That's how it's no-till spread. Lots of technology spread through.
Maybe a unifying thing for us to come back with and share in an ongoing way will be not just the information that is being generated and the experience base that's been being established, but also what we're experiencing with the adoption process itself. And I know maybe that, I think that could be a useful coming together goal for this group here, is to continue talking about, successful process. I don't.
Yeah, what's working and what's not, it may keep us from having to jump through the same hoop when you do it. And then sometimes it works in one place, not the other, but some of it we stay.
But to do it with this group and then also do it on your local level.
I do annual meetings. I mean, we don't meet that often, but we do an annual meeting in northeastern, southeastern Mexico, and it's an update every year of what are the new technologies towards tillage management, herbicide management, nutrient management,
and said, we had over 100 people. We didn't have big enough room this year for the second one we had.
There's a private model that's coming into our area out of Canada. I can't remember the name of the company. They came and gave us a presentation at the extension office. They're actually getting extension people on their list of hired experts, basically. And growers pay them a certain amount per acre, and they do soil testing and just basic consulting on cropping systems, rotation, soils, everything. And they have all this expert network, basically. It's basically a private extension service that the growers pay for. And they've come into our area. Yeah, it's kind of scary. They're pretty, and there's, WSU said you're not going to be on that network.
Really?
But Oregon is. Yeah, there's Don Hornick and,
Well, can I just ask to see what your all take is? All right, so one of Marilyn's points is must communicate the need for change based upon economic, social, and educational realities from the present and future. Have any of you been successful in doing that as a foundation for learning? You feel like have you developed approaches that are...
I've narrowed it down to time and money. Because that seems I mean, they all know about the wind erosion. And that's what maybe gets them to the meeting, but it's the time and money that the growers that are doing it now and have kept with it, it's the time and money that they save.
All right, so your scale that you show us.
I focus on the time and the money, yeah.
All right, okay. And that's having an uptake, and you feel like that message is getting in there. All right, okay. Anybody else?
Same with that, that restless tillage syndrome kind of thing where he's out playing with his daughter and going through.
I would just agree with him that, to me, Kenneth Jensen's one of his main things that he wanted to do was his time. He knew he can cover more acres, be larger, and so his time was, and he didn't want to have labor. Labor is a big concern of, for everybody right now. I think the healthcare and everything coming on, that labor is a big concern, and so anything that you can do to reduce costs, and help them to have more time.
And lower that anxiety to make them more receptive to learning.
So Marilyn, what are some resistance management approaches? We sort of went over that one. How does that work?
Well, it depends on, I think, I've certainly been in situations that people don't want to change. And I think it's important to recognize that with people. We did some training at the University of Virginia trying to get people to improve customer service, okay? People thought, I'm doing a great job, why am I here? I just need to be doing my job. This was I was the personnel and training manager at a facilities department there, so we had architects, engineers, HVAC, electrician, all of those people. And they were like, we're doing a good job, why should we be there? I don't want to change. We had done a survey, so we had some data that we needed to show that we needed to change. And so we just said, we know that you don't necessarily think you need to be here. I think to try and hide or not acknowledge that people are afraid or that people don't want to be there, people don't want to change doesn't help. That's downplaying their feelings and their emotions. So I think to just confront that head on. I know this can be difficult. I know you could be worried about how this is going to impact.